Hello, everyone, and welcome to Discover Rising Tides, How the Outside Makes the Inside Better. I am Jean Gallagher, and I'm talking with Denise Stegall. Hey, Denise.
Hey, Jean.
And we are making it through this month's topic, understanding menopause and hormones. What's this segment about today?
Today's segment is about the role progesterone has in menopause. And, we're talking about how the outside makes the inside better. This is a little bit of how the inside,
Inside makes everybody better.
Right. If we know what's going on in the inside, we can make the outside better.
And the outside being everybody that we're in contact with.
Bingo. Especially anyone you live with. So the challenge that we have when it comes to menopause, a couple things. One, we all go through it very differently. I'm 53 years old. I've been going through perimenopause now. I'm 2 years, almost 2 years postmenopausal. My sister's 50. She's got nothing. She has no problems. Well, that's not completely true. She's just now starting to notice some menopausal symptoms, which she didn't realize until recently were actually menopausal symptoms. And
like what?
She started to notice the belly. I mentioned that in our last segment. That kind of just abdominal fat that just it's not because you're not eating healthy. It's not you're eating too much or you're not exercising enough. It's just that's where weight gain is. That's where you're noticing it. Mm-hmm. Weight gain in general can also happen during this time. And this is a major challenge with progesterone. Again, when you have too much or too little of something, there's a chain reaction with the rest of your hormones. Estrogen and progesterone go together. They're kissing cousins. They really do belong together. And they need to be not completely balanced. Nothing is ever completely balanced. But you certainly don't want to have one that much higher than the other, because there's that major that major swing that people, right. And with that, people then experience, yes, you might experience some mood swings, but really this is where people start to notice that with progesterone, some of the effects are, like I said, waking, but depression, not just mood swings, but actual clinical depression. And again, it's a chemical imbalance. Clinical depression is a chemical imbalance. So if you have other chemicals, hormones in your body that are out of whack, everything kind of slowly down the chain starts to get a little out of whack as well. Some of the other things to notice if you if you have low progesterone, you'll start to notice decreased libido. That one really sucks. If you have a gallbladder issues, who knew? One that I noticed, or I didn't personally notice, but I have a friend when I was in high school who had really severe, heavy menstrual cycles. And we were maybe in juniors and seniors in high school. And this was something that was a problem for her for many, many years. And I kept thinking to myself, this can't be normal. But it was normal for her, right? Mm-hmm. So she thought, well, after she got married and tried to have a baby, that's when they found out that her progesterone level was so low that was actually causing the problem. And so once they got her hormones balanced for a woman and, in her early 20s who was trying to have a child, she had 2 babies. Wow. So these are things that we don't understand. One, because we don't talk about it. Our doctors really don't know a lot about it. Our gynecologists, they're kind of there for the easy stuff. This is a lot more complicated because everybody is different. Mood swings or mood regulation. When it comes to your progesterone actually has a calming effect on your brain. So it enhances mood. If there's not enough of it, it does the opposite, right? Think about when you had your menstrual cycle. There was a time around that, like you felt good, you kind of felt bad, your mood could change. During pregnancy, moods changed, right? They weren't so up and down as they can be with menopause. But you could always tell that there was something going on, right? With progesterone being low, another challenge is progesterone actually is a natural sedative, basically, so promotes better sleep. If you don't have the progesterone, you don't have that natural effect anymore. And so women that are starting to go through menopause, perimenopause, and menopause, that has that low progesterone, they're noticing they're not sleeping through the night. They rarely have a night's sleep where, it's uninterrupted. Their REM sleep cycles. And so what happens is they wake up and they're tired. They haven't slept through the night, and maybe they just, sometimes, wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you can't get back to sleep for no reason other than your progesterone level is low. And what happens then when you're tired and you wake up tired, you tend to be in a less than happy mood, let's just say. So now, with progesterone being low, we're already struggling with possible mood swings, and now lack of sleep is making that worse. So one of the things I think is really important to mention is, if you're starting to notice that your mood changes are really significant, this is time to start to find out, what your hormones are doing. At least start to do a little bit of research. And another piece where progesterone comes in is really important, and it's something that I didn't know until recently. And this is that progesterone acts to basically, it helps to thin the uterine lining, which prevents endometrial cancer. So high estrogen, thick lining, low progesterone or lower progesterone. Higher estrogen is going to prevent that that lining from getting too thick. With high estrogen would be thick. The progesterone helps to again even that out. Like I said before, they're kind of kissing cousins. They go together.
Yeah, and in balancing it, and the balancing part you were talking about too is, it's not if you're 50 or 60 years old, you're not trying to return your hormones back to when you were 20. You're trying to find that balance that's age appropriate.
Right. That's appropriate for you. And that's true. We're trying to get those hormones to a place where you're not suffering from symptoms. If you're 53 like me, you're going to have some kind of symptom, but you don't have to live with them. You can actually find a way, whether it's naturally or going on HRT, to balance those to a point where you don't have symptoms anymore.
And the important thing is just to be your own advocate.
Absolutely.
And find somebody. If you're not getting the right answers, it's frustrating, but you have to really find that person that understands how your body works and can provide you with the feedback and information that you need.
Absolutely. You always have to be your own advocate. You know your body best. So we will talk about that a little bit more in another segment. So I'm excited to expand on that.
And if you have more questions, call Denise. Hello, everyone. This is Jean Gallagher, Discover Rising Tides, and I want to just take a moment to talk about my friend, Denise Stegall. I am honored to call her as a friend, and I'm so grateful that she gives us her insight during our shows, each show, and talks about healthy living, eating real food. You hear Denise say, eat real food a lot. Well, she means it, and she knows what she's talking about. She is an amazing healthy living coach, curator at Living Healthy List. And if you ever have any questions about what is real food, why does it matter? How does that apply to me? How do I change? What do I need to do? How do I even create a healthy living shopping list? Make sure that you call her. She is your healthy living coach. And you can find her at healthylivinglist.com. Hello, everyone. I'm Jean Gallagher, founder of Discover Rising Tides, and welcome. I'm very excited to introduce to you Dr. Kris Sargent. And hi, Kris, how are you?
Hey, how are you, Jean? That's so great to be here. I'm excited.
Oh, this is going to be such a wonderful conversation. So before we start, give us a little bit about your background, and then we're going to start at the beginning and work our way to where you currently are now. And
Sure. So honestly, I am an OG functional medicine practitioner, like from way back in the 90s. And honestly, my functional medicine journey started before that. I have always been very cognizant of weight and food and movement, and I've danced ballet, tap, jazz since I was 3. So all of it just I have become functional medicine, right? In my almost 60 years on this planet. And so I started actually, don't shoot the messenger. I started in chiropractic school because I knew at the time in the late 80s, there was no way I would get nutrition and all of the things that I really wanted to study in traditional medical school. That was definitely a path that I was going to take, but it just didn't feel like the right path for me. And so when I got to chiropractic school, I was in heaven for the most part, besides the fact that it was hard and all the things. But that was all the things that I really wanted to learn about. And my own health journey really started, and I figured out some of my own hormonal stuff while I was in school, which really propelled the functional medicine piece when I got out of school. So those are my somewhat humble beginnings. I remember learning a little bit about functional medicine when a vitamin rep would come in and he'd present me with like this big stack of paper, and he had been to the library to copy abstracts of actual journal articles about nutrition. This was way back before anything was on the internet, and you still had to go to the library and read a paper journal, which, you know, we probably remember, but maybe our audience doesn't know. You had to really dig for those articles, and our vitamin reps did an amazing job back then to bring the actual research to the forefront, that we could really start healing and helping people with functional medicine.
Isn't it amazing? Well, so not to derail the conversation, but I might derail the conversation for a moment. And we're still having these conversations now, that in order for somebody in the medical profession to have a nutritional background, the their education process or becoming a doctor cannot be a mainstream doctor. It has to be some sort of alternative. Not that chiropractic is really alternative, but you have to go to some non-mainstream medical schooling in order to have a nutritional background. Doesn't make sense.
Absolutely. I mean, it's true. The medical profession, and I am not here to diss the medical profession.
Oh,
I
not
mean,
a bit.
not a bit, because yeah, not a bit, because what they do, sewing on people's arms and legs, and, you know, keeping people from having strokes and heart attacks and all, like,
So important.
mind blowing, right? Like the things that they do, brain surgery, and just so much good. But so their school is not set up for that. It's not. It's set up for acute medicine, or I need it right now medicine. And so not to diss that at all, but you're right. They have 7 to 25 hours of nutrition, and they you know, the unfortunate side is, or I still feel like that their ego gets in the way of them feeling like they know everything, but there's just this corner of medicine that they really don't know, and have poo-pooed it. And it's still, as much as I'd like to think that chiropractic or naturopathic medicine is mainstream, not in this country, not in the US, not yet.
And it's interesting too. So in the 90s, yes, I did see a chiropractor, but I wasn't aware of functional medicine in the 90s. That came presented to me probably in the last 8 years at the most, I would think. And how have you seen functional medicine change?
You know, it's so interesting. I remember sitting in Jeffrey Bland, who's really the father of functional medicine, at the Institute of Functional Medicine that he created. I remember sitting in giant ballrooms where 500 chiropractors would be there, and there'd be like 3 medical doctors, back in the 90s. And I was so excited that this was available to us, right? And fast forward even 10 years, and I'm sitting in the same ballroom, but now we're half and half.
No, wow. That's
And
amazing.
now if you go to those same ballrooms, now it's all online, but, you know, less of a ballroom situation, right? Where we used to get our continuing education. But it would be completely flipped now. where there'd be 50 chiropractors and 450 medical doctors. So I think it's certainly grown, but I remember Dr. Bland saying back in the day, like, it takes medicine 30 to 50 years to catch a new idea.
Wow.
So if you think way back in the day when they didn't think that hand washing was a good idea, and they practically stoned those guys alive for saying that they should wash their hands between patients, it took 30 to 50 years for that to become an accepted idea. And it's the same now. Nutrition is and functional medicine, if you will, is becoming more accepted. However, it's been 30 years, right? So we're at the precipice of a time where it's not looked down upon as much, and it's still not accepted. So in the next 20-ish years, like, our children's children will grow up with functional medicine being in that place, maybe of a little different standing than it is now.
Is it accepted or accessible? So that's part of.
So that's a big question, right? Because I mean, I just had this conversation with a client, and she doesn't feel like it's accessible because her insurance doesn't pay for it. And I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too far. That being said, I'm going to use the analogy that I often use. Your homeowner's insurance and your car insurance. What are they for? They're for catastrophes, right? A tornado rips through and takes the roof off of your house, or whatever, hail damage on your car, right? These are catastrophes. You get into an accident. Medical insurance is for catastrophes. It's not designed, it was never designed to keep us healthy. That's always been something that we were supposed to do for ourselves. And there's a piece of self-responsibility that I feel I'm definitely going to be niggling some eyeballs with a piece of cotton here. But I don't feel like people take personal responsibility for their health. And that bears out in 70% of Americans being overweight and obese. And I don't want to just pick on that, but like, I'm just a messenger here. We've done it to ourselves. And now we want insurance to pay for our ways of getting out of it. And they just, that's not, there's a cognizant and physical disconnect between what medicine does and what I do, and what insurance pays for and what it doesn't pay for.
Very true.
I understand the counterintuitiveness of all of that. Yes, if your insurance would pay for the gym, would you actually go? Because there are certain gyms out there that are $10 a month, and still people don't go.
Right. Yeah. And a lot, when people are thinking medical or they're thinking insurance, it is the insurance company points you to the mainstream resources. And quite often people's care is directed by the insurance company, not necessarily the doctors.
Certainly. I certainly saw a lot of that, actually, as I've been my mom's caretaker for the last 4 years. Fortunately, she's actually she's been in functional medicine before it was ever even a thing. My mom always ate well. She was 93 when she passed, and probably 85 of her years were amazing, like really amazing. And even just it's really only been the last 3 or 4, which in a life that long is a very short window of not being completely there physically. From here down, she literally had almost zero problems, the minor hypertension or high blood pressure, but because she always took care of herself. Right.
Yeah.
But yes, insurance did dictate, like, oh, well, now that she has some hypertension, she needs to be on this medication. And if it goes over this amount, then it needs to be this other medication. And yeah, I got into it with some hospitalists a couple times. They were actually amazingly good. I think I was blessed.
It's, and it is hard for and you're a doctor, so it's easier for you to be able to navigate those complexities than it is for an average
I,
consumer to be able to navigate anything like that.
I tell you what, as I navigated things, and one of the things that I noticed, Jeannie, is that, Jean, I just was actually smiling to myself many days, because when I first walked into hospitals right out of chiropractic school, or as I was teaching my interns, or, like 5 or 6 years into practice, late
Mhm.
90s, hospitals were awful places for her to walk into. They were disrespected, and we were called by our first name. And not that I'm stuck on my title, however,
Mm.
I still earned it, and it was really contentious. And this time through, I have to say, even from 5 years ago, when I had to do some other things with my mom, even from 5 years ago, I felt very respected, and people would talk to me on their level, and give me that kind of information that was really necessary. But I I have so much compassion for people walking into that medical system without some sort of advocate,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because it can be overwhelming. And even with me being on top of it all the time, every day, my mom still ended up over medicated a couple of times.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
one of the things that functional medicine brings to the plate is kind of a breath of fresh air, right?
Certainly, certainly.
And and it can also be, correct me if I'm wrong, but it can also be empowering to the people to learn how to take care of ourselves.
Yes, ma'am. That has always been my goal. My goal is to put myself out of business, right? I want you to hang out with me long enough that you know what to do in any basic given situation with your body. Over the course of 3 months to a year, you can really, if you tune in and start to do just a little bit of journaling and a little bit of charting, and for those of you who are not that way, I am not that way, but I learned how to be that way. And there's so many good tools that you can use now to make it simple. But charting your food, charting your
Mhm.
cycles, charting when you sleep well, when you don't sleep well, what did you do the day before that made you maybe sleep better? Like, just those simple things. Yeah, they are definitely empowering. You can learn more about your body with just a little bit of self-reflection. And then I want to teach people what to do about those things. Like, you have you go on vacation, you have a really good time, but you come back and you're like feeling bloated and kind of gross and all those things. Well, here's what you need to do for that, right?
Mhm.
Here's the steps that you can go through over the next couple of weeks to get yourself like back in your groove. And I think that that's some of what is the slippery slope for people, right? They
Mhm.
go on vacation, they come back, and they're like, I came back on a Tuesday, next week I'll start again, right? Instead of being like, you come back on a Tuesday, and Wednesday morning, that first breakfast is your smoothie like you normally do, and you're back
Mhm.
to the gym, and like you're back at it. You're no longer on vacation.
And
But
quite
it
often
is.
too, while you're on vacation, you're making more conscious decisions that will help Tuesday.
Hopefully, right? Like,
It's
hopefully, I
okay to
want
let
to,
it go, but
sure, absolutely okay to let it go. And that being said, like, when I take people through my program, let's say, and they start to understand that when they eat excessive amounts of gluten over the course of a weekend, right, or whatever, and I'm just picking on gluten, it could be anything, then that Monday or Tuesday they're like, well, I really just don't. And so you can choose now, right? You know what's going to
Mhm.
cause that. But if you're in Italy and you're at some, that's a whole different place. But if you're in Italy and you're eating pasta every day, like, you probably won't feel bad anyway. But even if you, like, maybe you still do, like, okay, you chose that.
Mhm.
You knew the outcome of doing that, right? I know the outcome of eating too many brownies. I know what happens to me and my personality and my belly and my energy level and my headspace. I know what happens when I eat too much sugar, and I don't want to feel like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I can make that choice.
Sure.
Yes, it is empowering. Absolutely empowering, Jean.
Hmm. And so, how does, when you're meeting with a potential client, patient, what's the right term?
Either.
Okay. When
Yeah,
when you're meeting with somebody, what,
human.
yeah, so can you give people an idea what is functional medicine? What is the process and how does it differ and why is it important? And we've touched on some of these things, but I'd like to know, I'd like people to understand how important it is.
Yeah, so the process is not that much different, right, than you go to your doctor, but here's where the differences lie. First of all, the history that a functional medicine doctor is going to take and that I take is probably going to be 40 minutes to an hour and a half long, depending
Mhm.
on what your health history has been. I want to know literally as much as you can recall from every skinned knee when you were a child and every ear infection, all the way through to, if you're female, right, your cycles, your timings, what happened in high school. Did you have a good high school experience mentally, physically, emotionally? Did you have a terrible high school experience? Tell me about the acne. Tell me about what all the things that happened. Tell me about college. What happened in college? Did you go off the rails in college? Some of us did. um Guilty. Like, then 20s, 30s, as we move forward, what is your health history really looked like?
Mhm.
Because we are just an accumulation of everything that's ever happened to us. And
Mm.
yes, we can work through our traumas and we can come to some sort of resolution with them. They still reside in us, right? They're
Mhm.
still part of who we are as a human being. So I think it's just really important to get under, to really look under all the levels of covers to see
Mhm.
what's under there, and like the onion, right, get to the core of that with a health history. I remember being in school, and basically our instructors, we were taught that if you don't know what's the matter with the person after the history, you haven't taken a good enough history.
Mm.
Like, you should have a really good idea
Mhm.
of at least the top two or three things that are going on with that human after
Mhm.
their history. And then when I do testing, I do it for I set up a set of functional medicine labs, which don't look that much different than what your regular doctor would do, but I'm going to come at them from a completely different slant. I'm going to look at them through the lens of how healthy are you
Mm.
versus do you have a disease yet? So we take this deep history, we get some blood work, and now I'm going to put healthy as part of a target, right? Like, if you're looking at a target, the concentric rings around a target. Um, the one in the middle is health. And when we look at your labs, we're like, how far out around this center of health? How far are you? And then
Mm.
what do we need to do to get your levels someplace closer to the middle? The difference is when you go to your medical doctor and he looks at your labs, or she looks at your labs, and he or she will say, everything looks good to me. The width of normal is very big.
Mm.
And so you have to
There's a
be
lot of room
really,
for, there's a lot of
there's
room
a
for,
there's a lot of room for problems to be starting in your labs without anybody really paying attention. And so with functional medicine, what we're looking at is trending, right? So I do labs now, I do labs in 6 months, I do labs in 6 months after that. Now I have 3 samples over the course of a year. And what does that trend look like? Oh, your magnesium hangs out around 2.2. Well, that's good. Like, that's a good place for you. Or, wow, it looks like no matter what we do, your magnesium hangs out around 2. Okay, maybe that's your normal.
Mhm.
And then we do labs again in the next year, and your magnesium's around the same. And we can say, you know what, it's okay to be off by a little bit. Our normal and healthy can be off by a tiny bit, but not these extreme amounts like what your
Mhm.
medical doctor is looking for, right? So, well, let's use blood sugar. blood sugar is an easy one. Everybody thinks about diabetes. Most of America, that are in the statistics that I just quoted a few minutes ago, like 50%, right? At least 50% are headed in that direction if they're not already there. And the challenge is that, 5 years ago, if somebody's blood sugar was 88 and then it's 92 and then it's 93, these are still normal values in the medical doctor's range. And now it's 97 and now it's
But they're
98.
trending.
But which direction is this person trending? Nobody's paying attention to that until they get to 110 and they read that 3 times. Now, all of a sudden, I have diabetes. No, none of these diseases that we are dealing with right now are acute medicine. They're all chronic disease. 70 to 90% of what is ailing Americans is chronic. It's been there for a long time. Heart attacks, the guy up the street that had a heart attack this morning, your neighbor, whoever that might be, because it happens every day. You're like, oh, I can't believe it. He was healthy. Was he? Because nobody's looking for healthy people. The medical profession is looking for illness. They're not looking for health. And so that's the big difference.
Can we stop right there for a second? Because what you just said is really important. The medical field is looking for illness, but also I think that we are too, because if any of us are watching television, all we're doing is watching, oh my God, I can't sit. What did my husband say the other day? Give me a Marlboro commercial.
I know, right?
Cigarette commercial. Because the pharmacy commercials, everybody's really happy because they're on this medicine. So if the doctors are looking for disease and what we're ingesting from media is happy people on medicine, it's really not good.
No, it is brainwashing. I know that that's like, oh, conspiracy theory, whatever, but, and I don't want to sound like that, but when I watch television and like every 7 to 10 minutes is another pharma. Hello, it's pharma and insurance. Pharma and insurance, some kind of insurance, whether it's life insurance, auto insurance, home, all of those insurances, right? And then pharma, those are the ones that are propping up all the things. So they're behind what gets put on TV too. Don't even believe for one moment that they don't have some sort of play and pull in the narrative, because they do. And so it is interesting that even with the proliferation of functional medicine, even with the knowledge, it's such a tiny little dot it's a drip in the ocean of pharma and the insurance companies.
Yeah. And I've been nothing happens by accident, but by accident, through my insurance company, which is a little non-traditional insurance company,
right?
I have access to a functional medicine doctor. And it's everything that you're talking about. It is taking the time, having in-depth conversations. And it's just so important. I recently had my hip replaced and I'm 2 weeks out right now. And the doctor that did it is phenomenal, but they're saying you're ahead of the curve. Well, I think a lot of it, the reason I'm ahead of the curve is I went in healthy and I went in strong and I went in in that method, so that the only thing that was affected was the parts that's attaching to my other parts and healing. So having gone through that, it really showed me how fortunate that, not to toot my own horn here, but how fortunate it was that I've had the medical support that I had through this process.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And, I think you're right about something, if you don't mind. Okay. I think you are right. When people do take care of themselves, for the most part, I mean, there's always the one-off, right? But when people do take care of themselves, they do find themselves healing quicker, with less complications, in shorter amounts of time. And the doctors are always like surprised right?
Right.
My mom, I don't want to harp on this, but when my mom was 79, she had rheumatic fever as a child, which if you don't understand that, it's a big it's an infection, but it can go other places in your body. And it went to her heart, and they knew it then, and she always had a murmur. She was 2 when she was sick.
Wow.
She was 79 when she finally had to have a heart valve replacement and an
Oh my.
aortic arch reconstruction. And it just goes to show the length of time that you can go with having a little something wrong with you before something really big can happen. Now, they should they have found it probably 5 years earlier? Probably, but my mom was not going. My mom did not go to doctors, because if you don't go, you don't find anything wrong. That was always her thing. But when she went, she really needed to go. And so it was just interesting, though, how quickly she came out of that surgery. Within 10 days, she was at home and like picking the scabs off of her open chest, open heart. And like it was itching like 3 or 4 days after her surgery because it was healing, right? We all know that sensation. So she did really well after that, really, really well.
But it allows
because
the
she was
body
healthy
to do
going
what the
in.
body's supposed to do.
Yep. It's not like taking a punch and then you take 2 or 3 punches after, it's your body's going in whole. It's not trying to fight other things at the same time. And I think that we saw a lot of that over the last 3 or 4 years, particularly.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
And I don't really want to walk into that controversy, but I just think that 70% of Americans being overweight and obese means that 70% of Americans are also inflamed, and their immune systems are going to be impacted in some way or other. They can feel fine, but they don't feel that we wouldn't feel just the heat of a lighter, right? Like there's inflammation there. But once we put any one thing, whether it was a virus or whether it was an auto accident, you're going to come out of it completely different than someone who doesn't have that level of inflammation to start with.
Right. And so the functional, and I agree with you, and we don't need to go down that little, it's not a little rabbit hole. It's a big one.
That's a
it's a sinkhole. We're not going there. But if anybody would like to, we can have those one-on conversations. But so now, one thing that functional medicine does, and one thing that you do for your patients is the education piece, so that if something major does happen, they're going into that situation in a different mindset, but also a different educational mindset as well. Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And to get back to, this is just part of functional medicine, right? History, we do labs. We look at labs from that different perspective. I help you understand your labs tell me what you're deficient in. So if we fix your deficiencies, right, then you're going to be sitting in a much healthier position until you go in. But the other part of all that is helping people understand how to eat, right? Like there's so much controversy around food. Like what's good? Well, as many people as are on the planet, that's how many diets there are. And so I'll sit with a client to figure out what works for you, right? What works for you? It's what works for me isn't going to be what works for you. And vice versa. So we figure out what works for you so that your go-to diet, right? What do you eat? What are you drinking, right? Are you too much caffeine? Are you too much alcohol? Too little caffeine? Too little alcohol? Not enough water? Are you drinking tea all day? Like what's your jam on? What do you drink? Eat, drink, move. Are you moving your body? Right? We don't have these muscles for no reason. We're not designed to sit in front of a computer. Nowhere in history until the last 20, 30 years have people sat for a living. Nobody, right? you know, maybe the little accountant bookkeeper in town, but that was it. And we were farmers. We were out. We had gardens. We were walking. We had neighborhoods. We had to walk. There were no cars. Like all of those pieces, and it still happens in Europe, and they're healthier for it, right? So move your body. And I'm not talking you have to go to the gym and you have to get sweaty, ladies. I know you don't like to get sweaty. I get it. You don't want to mess, you know, the hair and all the things. Move your body. 30 minutes a day. Move your body.
And as these decades tick off, our muscle retention becomes so much more important.
Yep. And we can certainly go down that road for just a minute. Sarcopenia is a thing. They're like, what's that? That is the muscle loss that you have over time. Your muscle mass does not just magically appear every single year as you get older. You have to create that and keep it. And if you're 40 now, what do you want to do when you're 60? Because you better start when you're 40, or you won't be able to do that when you're 60. Peter Attia is, you know, he has a great book, and it's called Outlive. And that was, you know, it's one of the things, although I've known it for a while, it was one of those things that kind of clicked in my head. Like, you're right. Like, you need to look at your health. Where are you now? Where do you see yourself? You want to be climbing mountains when you're 80? Great. You better start climbing mountains now when you're 40, or you won't be climbing mountains when you're 80. You know, it's never too late to start, but how far or how big and how wide you're going to get is going to change. It's going to shift. Yeah. Don't lose muscle mass. People, don't lose your muscle mass. It is your metabolism. And I think women, particularly in their 30s, are like, oh, my metabolism's going to heck. Nope. Your muscle mass is going to heck. That is where our metabolism sits, is our muscle mass. And there's even some studies about obesity and muscle mass. And there's some really brilliant trainers out there that are telling their people, like, just cut in half whatever it is you're eating. I don't care what it is, but I want you working out 5 days a week. And I want you weightlifting 5 days a week, even in an obese state. Because what they're doing is they're slowly starting to turn on their metabolism. And you can shift from, once we get to about 40% body fat, between 30 and 40% body fat, someplace in there, our metabolism shifts. And it slows down, and it makes it virtually, and the amount of inflammatory chemistry that comes off of it makes it very, 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 very difficult to lose weight. So once we can kind of shift that back and increase muscle mass, then what we've done is put your body in a better place to lose that weight.
It's refilling the fire.
It really is. It's
restoking the fire.
It is stoking the fire. So we've talked about eat, drink, move. I'm going to educate you on all those. Sleep. Ladies and gentlemen, sleep. I know this is the one place that I blew off for a really long time and didn't think it was that important until I had my kids. And I had my kids late. So when I had my kids, I realized, oh, no, there is no more 4-hour nights that I can function. I just wasn't able to do it anymore. And so sleep over the last 2 decades has definitely shifted for me. And now I'm even more intentional about it, as I was going through a lot of the stressors of being a caretaker. Like, I had to sleep, or I wasn't a very good caretaker. I wasn't a very patient caretaker.
Well, it is that you do need to, you know, everybody uses the analogy, and so I hate to say it, but it's really true. You know, when you're on the airplane, they tell you to put your mask on first, right?
Oh,
so in order to be a caretaker or take care of other people or be who you are, you have to take care of yourself first.
And honestly, that doesn't just go for caretakers, right?
Right.
It goes for every mom out there of toddlers. It goes for every single dad out there who's taking care of his kids. We all have to take care of ourselves first, not only to give ourselves the energy and the patience necessary. We are their role models. Our kids, as much as we tell them do, they're going to do what they see you do all day long, not what you tell them to do. And so as a role model, like, think about that. What you're choosing, they're seeing, they're going to choose.
If you're, honestly, if you're putting peas on their plate, but you're eating French fries, The message is clear.
The message is very clear. And, my kids are, and my kids are they're going to be 19 and 21 this week. And, I wish I could tell you that, oh, my kids eat broccoli with every, I wish, right? Like they grew up knowing how to eat. And my son is a very highly trained baseball player, college baseball player. He tracks 4,800 calories of food every single day. The discipline level is far beyond anything that I could ever come up with. My daughter tends to not be quite as tight as that. They're both in good health. They're both normal weight. They both know when it's time to go off the rails, and they both know when it's time to sit down and have a big salad with some steak on it or some kind of protein, right? They can tell you the difference between protein and carbohydrates. They can tell you, right? Because this is the part of teaching clients and teaching our kids what to do for themselves. So eat, drink, move, sleep, think, feel, and faith. And I feel like some of those things can get crossed over, right? This is kind of that body,
Can you
mind,
say that
spirit.
again?
Think, feel, and faith.
Okay.
So our mindset, what do we think? How are we thinking? Are we thinking negatively? And I'm not talking about like that fake it till you make it kind of thing, but what ruminates in your brain all day long? Is it positive things or is it negative things? Because with some work, I'm not going to tell you that it's easy, but with some work, we can replace our thoughts. The Bible even says that we can renew our thoughts, right? So we are here, we can renew our thoughts just like we can renew our body. And it's important to have those renewed thoughts that are positive, because the things that we think become real. Those thoughts can add more stress to our body. They can add more cortisol to our system. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a real accident and a fake one. If you are playing it out in your imagination, something is going to happen, and you play it out in detail, something negative, you feel a cortisol rush. You feel that adrenaline. It is no different than if in your brain than if it already happened. That being said, that means you can also play out positive things in your life. And that pulls that cortisol. Like you can meditate. I just had a great conversation with someone who practices yoga nidra. You can visualize a beautiful beach scene, right? Everybody just exhaled, right? Or mountain scene, right? Like, and take your cortisol levels down just through the imagination. So thoughts, think, feel, and faith. So your feelings, our thoughts precede our feelings. I know that we all feel like there's no thought before that feeling, and that we can't control our feelings, but it is scientifically proven that our thoughts come before our feelings. And our feelings are just energy in motion, emotion, energy in motion. And if you can sit with a feeling for about 90 seconds, I know it's going to feel like forever. Sit with it for 90 seconds. It will roll through your body, and then you can choose your response as opposed to reacting. So think, feel, faith. Faith is a very individual thing. I'm a solid Christian. I'm not here to judge anybody for what they believe in at all. That is not my job. I don't want that job. I am here by the grace of God to love people, because that is the commandment. So I think that people having faith, it's one of the things that in the blue zones, right, is a piece of your longevity. The longevity piece is having some sort of faith as part of your community. And a community of faith is even stronger than just having faith. So those are the things that I help to teach people as they walk through functional medicine. It's not just here, take a pill, and I'll see you whenever. It's
work,
and it's not just take these vitamins either. Right? Yes, that's an important part of it, but I can't supplement over a crappy diet. Right? You can't out exercise your fork. So you can't, right? Like you can't out exercise your fork.
That has to be your tagline. That's brilliant.
Thank you. I don't think I thought of it, but anyway.
But I don't know. You got to remember it because that is brilliant.
You can't out exercise your fork. So like as much as I want you to move your body, that's important, but it's also important that you can't think that you're going to eat a pan of brownies and go to the gym tomorrow and exercise all those brownies off. It's just not the way your body works at all. So yeah, so functional medicine is comprehensive in the way that we look at lifestyle. I don't want to impose an eating plan for somebody that isn't going to work. I want to sit down with you and say, okay, what days can you do some food prep? What works within your schedule? Is that actually doable? And we talk, go back and forth and negotiate. We'll try it for a week. Let's see if it works. That didn't work. Okay, great. Let's back up. We'll start again. Where did things go off the rails? Oh, well, my kids got busy and they did this and that and the other. Okay, so we need to figure out what to do when when the kids start spinning.
Yeah. So you really become a partner in people's wellness.
Absolutely. That's my favorite part.
Yeah. And you have so much knowledge and you have so much passion and you have so much to offer your patients, your clients. And what I wanted to be able to touch on too is that you are in Tennessee, but you're not I want to say stuck with only people in Tennessee, but that's the wrong word.
I don't have any constraints around that.
The privilege of functional medicine is that it works really well virtually.
It works really well virtually. And I know it's still a little weird, even though we've come through this whole virtual thing. And yes, I miss having an office. I miss having a couple staff people. I miss the hugs of an actual office. At the same time, I can see more people and help more people, and I can be more available. On any given day, you can sit in front of your Zoom and we can hit the high points, and I don't care what you look like, and maybe you don't care what I look like on those days either, right? Like I may be just coming in from a baseball game or whatever. It just allows a lot more realistic life to happen in a business,
right?
Still, and in a practice.
So, how do people find you? How do they connect with you? And what's that process?
Yeah, it's actually pretty easy. I do have a website. It's drkrissargent.com. And I am on all the social media, Instagram and Facebook. I mean, I'm easy to find. If you can Google my name, you can find me pretty easily. My personal process is we will have a phone call first. It doesn't have to be intimidating. It doesn't have to be face to face. It can just be a phone call to start with. And I can make sure that I can help you because, we have to make sure that we're a good fit, right? Not just can I help you, but am I a good personality for you? I tend to be a little blunt. I tend to be a little bit, if I have to be in your face, I'm going to be in your face. And it doesn't work for everybody. I still have empathy and I understand and I'm compassionate. And I'm direct. So that doesn't work for everyone. And that being said, I think that when people start down that functional medicine road, there are some hard truths that we all have to come to terms with. I remember when I had such horrible menstrual cycles and my PMS was just out of control and I was in chiropractic school, and the person that helped me really had to like stand on it and say, hey, you can get over this, and you're going to have to stop doing this. You're going to have to stop doing that. This is an absolute must. And it was like, I didn't want to hear that. I didn't want to.
But you also needed to hear it.
I did need to hear it. I did need to hear it. I did need to hear that I didn't have those choices anymore, at least not for that time period, right? That there was a time period that my body needed to heal and to move past the what was going on. And so, and there's, some supplements don't taste good and you kind of have to suck it up. And some of it tastes like you just kind of picked it up out of your garden and threw it in your blender, but um, it works.
Mhm.
And if you can get past the I don't want to and the I don't feel like it and get out of your own way, functional medicine works for everybody.
Mhm. I want to thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, this was so fun. It went so fast.
I know. And I encourage, there's so much we could talk for hours. And I want to
could.
encourage everybody to reach out to Dr. Kris and see if you're a good fit. Let her be direct. There's nothing wrong with that. And I want to thank you for your insight in your conversation today and just sharing so much with me.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. It was really a pleasure, and I am passionate about functional medicine, and I love every single one of my clients, like every single one, every day, all the time. The 32 years that it's 32 years in April that I came out of chiropractic school gung-ho to practice, and yeah, it's been quite a journey, and I just love everything there is, everything functional medicine. And I do have a book on Amazon. It's called Simply Functional Medicine, that I published several years ago. And really it breaks down the simple things like eat, drink, move, sleep, think, and feel. And it breaks those down into very consumable parts, so that you can easily find on Amazon.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. And one more time, give us the name of the book and then we'll let you go.
Yes, it's Simply Functional Medicine and Dr. Kris Sargent. And you can find me on Amazon. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, everywhere at Dr. Kris Sargent.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening today. Today's show was sponsored by Seaside Solutions, my financial services company. As a business owner, it's easy to be pulled in many different directions, and often taking care of yourself plummets to the bottom of the list. For me, I find myself outside to reground. My time outdoors helps me manage my day more effectively and be more present for my clients. Through this, Discover Rising Tides was born. At Seaside Solutions, we truly believe that education is the foundation of financial wellness. Our primary focus is to provide guidance that is designed to help you achieve your long-term financial goals and visions. Working with a plan allows space for doing more things that you love, like being outside to make the inside better. If I can help you create or realign your plan, or if you would like to be added to my weekly newsletter, please let me know. This week's topic was 5 ways to set more achievable goals. Your referral means the big, beautiful world to me, and if I can help, please let me know. And thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.